I still can't step into any bathroom without my heart skipping a beat, even years later, because one ordinary evening in a cramped UK university hostel changed how I see every shared living space forever. It was a drizzly September afternoon when I dragged my two heavy suitcases up 3 flights of stairs in that old red brick hostel building in Manchester. At 22, I was finally living away from home for my master's degree, and the excitement mixed with nerves made everything feel electric. The room was tiny, with 2 single beds pushed against opposite walls, a shared wardrobe that barely closed, and one narrow ensuite bathroom we would have to share every single morning. When I first met my roommate Alex, he seemed like the answer to every worried parent's prayer. Tall, with messy brown hair and an easy laugh, he immediately grabbed one of my suitcases and helped me unpack while cracking jokes about how the walls were so thin you could hear the neighbor's alarm clock. We spent that first evening drinking cheap instant coffee in the shared kitchen down the hall, swapping stories about our hometowns and our fears about student life. Alex told me he was 25, working part-time at a cafe while finishing his final year, and he sounded so grounded and helpful that I relaxed instantly, thinking I had lucked out in the roommate lottery. The first few weeks passed in a blur of new routines and small shared living adjustments that every student knows too well. We would knock politely before using the bathroom, we'd leave little notes on the fridge about buying milk, and we'd stay up late studying together at the tiny desk with our laptops side by side. Alex was always the one who remembered to take the bins out, and he even cooked pasta for both of us on nights when the cafeteria food was inedible. Yet, tiny things started to feel off, in ways I couldn't quite name at first. I would finish showering and notice the bathroom door handle turned just a fraction differently than I left it, or my towel seemed to have been folded again, even though I was sure I had left it hanging loose. One morning, I found my shampoo bottle moved 2 inches to the left on the shelf, and when I mentioned it casually, Alex laughed it off, saying the cleaning lady must have been in early. I brushed it aside because who wants to accuse their friendly roommate of something so silly when everything else felt so normal? As the weeks turned into months, the little odd moments piled up until they started keeping me awake at night. Alex began asking strangely specific questions about my schedule, like exactly what time I usually showered, or whether I ever used the bathroom late at night. He would hover near the door when I came out of the shower, making small talk that felt a beat too long. One evening, I came home early from lectures and heard a faint clicking sound coming from inside the bathroom, followed by complete silence the moment I turned the key in the lock. When I asked what he was doing, Alex said he was just fixing the shower head, but his face went pale for a split second. The paranoia grew slowly, like a shadow in the corner of the room. I started double-checking the bathroom every time I entered, looking behind the mirror and inside the vent cover, feeling ridiculous but unable to stop. Shared hostel life is supposed to be about learning to trust people, yet here I was, feeling more exposed than I had ever felt in my life. The breaking point came on a cold Thursday night after a long day of exams when I decided to take a quick shower before bed. I had just stepped out and wrapped the towel around myself when I noticed a tiny black dot glinting from inside the air vent above the shower. At first, I thought it was dust or a screw, but when I climbed onto the edge of the sink and shone my phone light into the vent, my stomach dropped. There it was, a small, wireless camera, neatly taped inside the grill, pointing straight at the shower area. My hands started shaking so hard I almost fell. Everything clicked into place: the moved shampoo, the odd questions, the clicking sounds, the feeling of being watched every single day. I pulled the camera out carefully, my mind racing with horror at how long it had been recording me in the most private moments of my life. When Alex walked into the room a few minutes later, I was sitting on my bed holding the device in my lap, with tears streaming down my face. The confrontation that followed was raw and ugly in ways I still replay in my head. Alex froze when he saw the camera, then tried to deny everything at first, claiming it must have been left by a previous tenant. But when I showed him the fresh tape and the battery still warm from use, his shoulders slumped, and the truth spilled out in a shaky voice. He admitted he had installed it 2 months earlier, saying he had developed feelings for me and wanted to feel closer, but that it had spiraled into something he couldn't stop. The excuses only made the betrayal cut deeper. I felt violated, angry, and deeply sad at once, because this was the person I had trusted with my daily life, my secrets, my space. That night, I packed what I could and slept on a friend's floor, while the hostel staff handled the formal complaint. Moving out the next day felt like escaping a prison I never knew I was in. Even now, years later, when I hear friends talk about their own shared apartments or hostel experiences, I feel that familiar chill, because one hidden camera taught me how fragile trust can be in any shared living situation, whether you're a student in your 20s, an adult juggling work and bills, or even older people sharing space later in life. The story still haunts me, not because I want to scare anyone, but because it reminds us all to stay aware, protect our privacy, and never ignore those quiet warning signs that something feels wrong. If you've ever lived with roommates or thinking about it, I hope my story makes you pause and check your own space just a little more carefully, because sometimes the scariest things hide in the most ordinary places.